Alright, so today we're going to do 8-8. So when we factor by grouping, the main steps are to do the following. Factor out a GCF if available. Right away, the first thing that you need to ask yourself on any of these, even when we have a cubic polynomial or anything higher, is there a GCF right away that can come out of each term? If there is not a GCF that can come out of each term, then you move to step 2, okay? But step 2 is to right away split the polynomial into 2 sections and then factor out the GCF out of each section, okay? Just like we have done in some of our other factoring, okay? And then we rewrite them into binomials. Don't forget that when you rewrite into binomials, though, if you factored out a GCF in the beginning, to put that back on, all right? And so the thing that makes this a little bit scary for some kids is you look at this right away and you're like, oh my gosh, we're starting with a cubed, or we're starting with a 4th power here, okay? And so how do I factor that? So just follow the steps. So starting with this first one, what is the factored form of 3n to the 3rd power minus 12n squared plus 2n minus 8. So take a look at the terms. Is there a GCF out of all 4 terms other than 1? No. There is not. So in this case, you get to skip right into step 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to split this guy up, and we're going to factor a GCF out of each side, okay? So if I split this up, then what is the greatest common factor that could come out of 3n cubed minus 12n squared? So be careful about that. Brandon, go.
3n cubed.
Yes, good. 3n squared can come out of there. So the other thing is that there's going to be multiple variables now that can come out a lot of times. So that leaves us with 1n, right? Technically to the 1 power. And I'm putting the 1 in just for a minute here. And then negative 12n squared divided by 3n squared, what's that?
4.
Just 4. And it's negative, right? Okay, now let's do the other side. So what's the greatest common factor that can come out of 2n minus 8? Go ahead again, Brandon. 2. So that leaves us with 1n minus 4 again. And so just like we did before, even with the cubed, we still want to make sure that these 2 in the parentheses match, and they do. And so then all we're going to do is we're going to rewrite into binomials, just as we've done before. We're going to take these 2 and put them in 1. So we're going to have 3n squared plus 2, because that's a positive 2. And then our other binomial will be 1n minus 4. And this is the final answer.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So easy.
It's not that bad. It looks way scary when you first start it because you're like, oh man, I have high exponents, right? It is similar in problem 2, only it gets a little more crazy because, again, like in problem 2, our highest degree here is 4, all right? So I'll show you what we're going to do here again. So a lot of factoring out GCFs, but if you take a look at this next one, right? 4q to the 4th power minus 8q to the 3rd power plus 12q squared minus 24q. Is there a greatest common factor right away that can come out of all 4 of the terms? There is. 4q, yes. So 4q is going to come out right away. And so we're going to rewrite this whole polynomial by factoring this out. So if you divide 4q to the 4th power by 4q, what are you left with? 1q to the 3rd, right? So, and I'm just going to write it as q to the 3rd. Okay, and then if we divide negative 8q to the 3rd by 4q, we get
Minus q, 2q,
yep,
squared.
2q squared, yep. And then next term, 12q squared divided by 4q would leave us with
3q.
3 cubed. And then finally, negative 24q divided by 4q is negative what? With a q or not a q? No q. Okay? So we're here. So that's the first step. We took that out. Now, don't forget, we're going to put that back on our answer in the end, right? So now the next step is now number 2. Now we have to split and factor what's inside our parentheses. So we're still going to have our 4q hanging out, okay? So I'm not going to forget about this guy. I'm just going to kind of like put a little red circle around him right now. But I want to focus on this one a second. So if I split this up and factor each side, so what's the greatest common factor that could come out of the left side? Q to the third power minus 2q squared. Yep. So q squared, and then I would be left with q to the 1 power, just q, right? And then what would I be left with? Yeah, negative 2. All right, now let's do this side here. So 3q minus 6. What's our greatest common factor? 3, yep. And then what am I left with? Q minus 2 again, right? Which is what I wanted. Now, if we're being technically correct step by step, what you would do right now in this intermediate step is you would put a big bracket around that, and you would bring your 4q down so you don't forget it later. That's your intermediate step, okay? And now we're going to rewrite it. And technically there's a time sign in there, right? So let's rewrite it. So the part we have to rewrite in binomials is here. So, and I know we're not going to use problem 3, so I'm just going to cross this out, and I'm going to use this space to write my answers. Okay, so now if I rewrite my binomials, right, q squared plus 3 is in the first one. What's the second one? Q minus 2. And then I also have to bring down 4q, right, and put it out front. And this is my final answer. Doesn't that bring you joy? Yeah, it's actually, it makes you feel super smart because look at what you started with, right? Great job. Okay, so that's the main lesson for the last lesson. Those of you that are watching, if you needed the notes or whatever, if you have questions, make sure that you email me so that I can get back to you with that.